Hello, welcome to today's tidbit. So, for those people who have a lot of money in foreign countries and want to invest their way into the United States to get a green card, of course, the way to do that is through the EB-5 program. So, the EB-5 program was created many years ago to allow such an investment to be made. Now, there's countries where, the investment for the green card is easy peasy, okay? You put the money, you do a couple things, and boom, you have their version of the green card. Unfortunately, it's not like that in the US. In fact, it's the opposite. You would think that if you put over $1 million and invest, that you would easily be able to get the green card, but it is far from that. There's a few things you have to realize, that the purpose is to generate money into the U.S. economy, to make jobs, to do all that type of stuff. And for a while, and for a lot of people, they were just essentially doing $1 million, and they weren't complying with the purpose of the EB-5. So that necessitated all kinds of other things that became more difficult to move forward and so forth. So the purpose of the EB-5 program needs to be met, and that's why the standards are so strict. And also in the US, you simply cannot buy off any adjudicator, and they certainly don't get one penny more of their salary by adjudicating an EB-5. So they're going to go by the books. They're going to do everything necessary, and that's why it is critical that you understand the basics of the EB-5 before you step in there, and not just think because you might have $1 million you're going to plop into a business that 3 days later you're going to get the green card. Okay, there's a lot of different requirements. So that's basically how that works. So the EB-5, once you get it, it is a conditional green card, meaning that after everything's said and done, that once you actually make it happen, and once you actually get it, it is a 2-year conditional green card, where they even, basically they want to make sure that after 2 years you file another petition to remove the conditional residency, so that they can confirm you have actually complied with all of the requirements, and not just essentially done what you did to try to get the green card and then close up shop and say goodbye. Okay, so that's basically what it is. So that's the general introduction of the EB-5. Now, how do you become eligible for an EB-5? What do you need to do? Well, there's, of course, the most obvious requirement is the investment. Okay, so if you don't have essentially $1 million to invest, don't do this. Okay, and you don't want to be right up on the edge of $1 million too, because there's lots of other fees that you're going to have to incur in order to make this happen. Now, that doesn't mean like these other fees can't be part of the investment. So, for example, you have an immigration attorney, you're going to have a corporate attorney, you're going to have an accountant, CPA, all kinds of stuff. And all of that money can go to help invest, or as part of the investment for the EB-5. So it's not like you have to pay it separately, but you want to make sure you have the initial investment amount anyways. Now, there is the job creation requirement as well, okay? The job creation requirement essentially mandates that within those 2 years, you've created 10 full-time positions for those authorized to work in the U.S. Okay, and by full-time, it has to be at least 35 hours a week. And of course, you have to document it all. And when you're doing the initial petition and you're doing the business plan, you are going to put where you think those 10 people are going to go, whether it's, in the accounting and managerial, janitorial, secretarial, in the marketing, the computer, you just, whatever your business is, you just have to span it out. And then, of course, when you file the petition to remove the conditional residency, you will show that all of those 10 jobs or more have been created. Now, you also have to be aware, which is a good thing, that there are targeted employment areas, TEAs. What does that mean? Well, a lot of the requirements of EB-5s, including the investment amount, are laxed or relaxed when you invest in a TEA, or a targeted employment area. And this means that, a lot of times you do a business where a lot of other people don't want to do a business. That's what it means, that it's in a, area that has real low, population or high unemployment. There's metropolitan statistical areas, and, there's all kinds of ways that we find out what the TEAs are. And if you invest there, then you're going to be improving that particular area, which is what they want. And since immigration will, since the Congress basically, when they pass the laws, want you to invest in a TEA, they did make it easier for you to do that. So if you are running up against the line on the amount of the investment, change where you're going to invest to a TEA. Okay. Now, there are two different kinds of investments with an EB-5. Okay, the first is a direct investment. And a direct investment is going to be your business. It will be what you are going to do. It will be what you're going to run. You will have all the say in everything that happens. And of course, the requirements are stricter. Again, you have to prove the 10 people you're going to be able to employ. You have to prove that you've met the requirements. You have to prove all the stuff, okay? So that is a direct investment. Now, there are people who don't want to run their own business, don't want to do any of that, and yet they still have enough money and they still want an EB-5, so they can go on the investment route through what's called a regional center. Okay? Now, a regional center is a whole separate thing where they have been approved by immigration to take EB-5 investments to help with their development. So take, for example, in Los Angeles, around, downtown, there are several high-rises that were built, and there's condos, and there's like a block of area that everything went up to increase the area and people living there. A lot of that was under a regional center, and so a lot of that investment comes from immigrants under the EB-5 in order to get the green card. Now, if you invest in a regional center, there's some very significant benefits to that. Number one, you don't have to run your own business. You don't have to worry about it. You're basically putting money in another corporate investment to do whatever it is they do, okay, to build buildings or condos or whatever it is. You essentially become a silent shareholder / silent partner, where you either, your money will go up or it will go down. But generally, if the regional center was approved, it's a decent way to go, because in addition to not having to worry about running your own business, the amount of the investment is less, okay, which is good. The number of employees that will be generated, you don't have to worry about it. It's assumed. It's assumed that the regional center will employ at least 10 people, and you don't have to prove a thing in regards to that. I mean, other than, showing you invested in the regional center. And you don't have to worry about management decisions or anything like that. So, and you can invest in any regional center you like in the entire United States, and you don't have to live there. If you do your homework and you find a regional center you like in Minnesota, but you don't want to live there, you can live in Florida, have invested in a regional center in Minnesota, and still get your green card. Okay, if everything's done right. So you do have to decide whether you want a direct investment or an investment in a regional center. So what are the steps you need to do in order to get an EB-5 out the door? Okay, well, first you need to do your homework. First things first, everybody who does this, who comes and puts $1 million, they want that $1 million back. Okay, they want their investment back once all said and done. Even if it's 8-10 years later, they want their money back. And that by no means is guaranteed. By no means. So first, you have to look at it as though you were a business person, that you were just investing in either your own business, if that's your idea, or that you're investing in a regional center. Okay, take the whole immigration thing out of it at the beginning. Don't even think about that. Look at it first as just an investment. If you didn't have to worry about immigration, would the investment work? Do you think it would work? If you're running your own business, do you have a good business plan? Do you have a good model? Have you done market analysis? Have you looked at all of the accounting numbers? The whole procedures that someone would do if they were running their own business. Okay, that's if you're going to do a direct investment. If you're going to do a regional center, you're not just going to plop down $1 million on any regional center. Okay, you're going to do your research, your due diligence. And if you're not going to do it, you're going to hire somebody to do it. And you're going to run the numbers. You're going to see what they do. You're going to look and see if there looks like there would be a profit, if it looks like it would be successful. You're going to look at the company and you're going to see if the company has done EB-5s before, meaning, regional center approvals before and how they went. And you're going to get the financials. You're going to do all that analysis. This is not something you just take $1 million and plop in there and boom, it's done. Okay? Because when the end of the day comes, you might not get any of your money back. You might lose a bunch of it. Okay? So it is a nice and real investment that you have to take into consideration. Okay? So that's the first thing. Then, of course, you have to have a very detailed business plan. And normally the immigration attorney will draft that and take from different, parties, all kinds of stuff to get a good business plan out there. That will be, part of the process. And then there's all the forms that need to be prepared, the attorney cover letter, the declarations, the affidavits, the supporting evidence, the investment itself, the sourcing of the funds. There's a lot of stuff, okay? I'm just highlighting some of it. And then what you do is once all that's said and done, it's referred to as Form I-526, by the alien investor. And again, some people think all they do is put $1 million in, fill out Form I-526 and that's it. And of course that's not. That's like the cover to the book. Okay. And an EB-5, I'm not kidding you. An EB-5, when we send them, they're like that thick. Okay. And you're not just blowing steam when you do that. Everything matters, and everything in there is for a reason. Okay. So where does the EB-5 go? Well, the EB-5 petition will go to USCIS. All right. They will adjudicate it. And it's not something they adjudicate overnight because, like I just showed you, it is a very large petition, a very complex petition. They actually have an EB-5 team that works on it, and that's all they do. So they do know the ins and outs of the laws and the requirements and everything else that's necessary. So USCIS will adjudicate it. Many times there are delays. Many times it takes longer than you think. And many times after you've waited quite a while, you'll get an RFE or a request for evidence. And they don't just send a request for evidence, asking for two or three things. Many times you'll get a multi-page request for evidence on things that they have questions on, that they don't understand, that you didn't make clear, that don't look like they comply, things like that. And you'll of course get time to respond to it, but then you have a while that you have to take to properly respond to the RFE, and then once that gets sent in, the clock starts over again to adjudicate the petition. Okay, so if you're looking to get the green card in a month or 2 months, EB-5 is not for you. Okay, a lot of times people will come here on a different kind of non-immigrant visa and then do the EB-5. For example, if they come from a treaty country, they come here on an E-2. Investment for that's only $50,000 to $100,000. So they come here on an E-2. They run their own business, their own little business on an E-2. And while they're here in the U.S. and while they're running it, that's when they get the EB-5 done. They don't just stay in their home country. I mean, some people do. Some people do the EB-5s because they want dependent visas for their children to be able to have the green cards, before they turn 21, so they can come here, should they want, as a lawful permanent resident. Okay, so that's how that works. Now, as I had told you earlier, it is a conditional green card. So what other things in immigration have conditional green cards? Really, there's only one other thing, and it's a marriage petition. It's kind of funny. It's a marriage petition and an investment petition. And those two things have conditional green cards because there's been so much fraud, so much lying, so much deceit, so much trying to get past the rules that they only issue a conditional green card so that you will prove that everything you stated before is correct and is working, and that their initial approval was correct. Okay, so even though it's hard enough to get the initial approval, once you get it, you got to do it all again in 2 years. Now, of course, the Form I-829, which is the petition to remove the conditional residency, is what you do in order to get it filed. And that has to be filed within, normally 90 days of the expiration. And if you don't file the petition to remove the conditional residency, your status will terminate. Everything you did is gone. You will be here unlawfully, and there's all kinds of problems that will start. So don't think just because you got the conditional green card that everything's over and that you don't have to worry about anything anymore. That's not the case. Okay, it's the opposite. And by that same token, if you're thinking you want to just invest, get the green card, close up shop, and say goodbye and go lie on the beach and relax, that's not going to happen for many years. It takes time to get the EB-5 approved. It takes time to prepare and submit the petition to remove the conditional residency. And then it takes time to get the conditional residency petition approved. Now, once that's approved, you then have the normal everyday 10-year green card. Okay, it's called a permanent green card, even though you have to renew it every 10 years. But that's what it takes. And then, should you want to close up shop at some later point, you can do it. But for sure, not until after the conditions are removed on the conditional green card. Okay, so there's a lot of risks and considerations that you have to take into effect when doing the EB-5. Okay, of course, the top risk is financial. Okay, don't think that the $1 million, as I said earlier, that the $1 million is just going to come back to you after all said and done, after the conditional residency is removed, and ultimately later you close up shop or whatever, or you have a regional center investment and you think you're just going to get it all back. You must do the analysis. You must determine if the risk is worth doing this. And of course, there's immigration risks. Okay. First, if you're doing this to get your kids the green card, There's timing considerations, there's age out considerations, and so forth. If you're doing it because you want to hop over to the US really quickly, of course, that's not going to happen. So you have to look at other ways of getting here. You have to look at the risks of getting the non-immigrant visa and then being able to do the EB-5. And if the EB-5 is denied, there's the risk that you now have shown immigrant intent. And if you want to try coming as a non-immigrant again, for example, as on a B2 visitor visa, that will likely be denied. So there are certain risks that you have to take into consideration. And when all's said and done, you have to do due diligence. Okay, due diligence is critical. Don't leave it to, for example, one immigration attorney to do all of the work for you. Okay, that's just one side of it. That's the immigration side of it, which of course is, incredibly important. But ultimately, it's your money, your business, or your choice of a regional center. Even if you say to the immigration attorney, what do you think about this regional center? It doesn't matter if the immigration attorney says, well, they have a good track record. It looks like they're doing well. They've had 2 or 3 other EB-5s. So it looks like a good deal. They can't legally even recommend to you which regional center to go or to take. So you need to do that. You need to have due diligence or hire your own people to make sure that what you want to invest in is what you really want to do. Okay? So you have to consult not only with immigration attorneys, but you have to consult with financial advisors, economic advisors, accountants, CPAs. You can see it's a whole thing, correct? So, the point here is that with the last few years, there's been an incredible amount of litigation on EB-5s, okay? And from certain countries, there's backlogs longer than other types of visas. So the EB-5 is not the, end set all way of doing it. If that's it and you're going to go forward with it, that's great. But do consult at least with an immigration attorney on other possible options, depending what country you're from, depending on the backlog of EB-5s, depending on the strength of the case, and so forth. You don't want to do an EB-5 unless you have a really strong case, period. Okay? That is not in your benefit. So make sure that all the ducks are lined up before you go forward. Okay? There's been various changes to and legislation with regional centers, with the sourcing of funds, with where the money comes from, everything. Okay, if you happen to be in a country where you earned all of your money illegally from drugs or bribes or whatever it is, then of course you're not going to get an EB-5. So the sourcing of the funds is very important to show where the money came from and that it's all legitimate and that it's yours. Okay. There's been a lot of normal obstacles that go with a typical EB-5 petition over the years. And, if one did an EB-5 petition 10 years ago versus now, it will be different. There's a lot of possibilities that if you submitted this exact same petition today that you did 10 years ago, if it was approved 10 years ago, it would likely not be approved today. Okay, so the laws change, the requirements change, things get more strict, certain issues arise as time goes on. So you need to make sure that you get someone who knows what they're doing, okay? So in conclusion, while the EB-5 is a good, strong visa to get, I think you realize by my talk here that it is not easy, and it takes time, and it takes a significant amount of preparation to get the EB-5. But if it's done properly and you get all of everything lined up before you submit it, then it'll be good to go. And with the EB-5, of course, there's the dependents that come along with you. Your spouse, your unmarried children under 21, all of them can also get the green cards along with you. So if you're from a country and, one kid's turning 18 or 19, and you don't know if you want to stay in that country, then, that would be the time to get an EB-5 moving forward so that once all said and done, and if it's approved, you, your spouse, and your kids can all come to the U.S. and start your new lives here in order to go forward. So, a lot of good points in getting an EB-5, a lot of benefits in getting it. You don't have to have your own petitioner. You don't have to have another company that is petitioning you. You don't have to work for anybody else. And even if you are retired, you invest in a regional center, you come to the U.S., and again, you're like a silent partner and you go from there. So that, in summary, is the EB-5 and what is required. Okay.